Hi, I'm attorney Chris Reich with Traffic Law Guys, and in this video I'm going to cover some ways you might defend against a criminal speeding ticket in Arizona. This only applies to Arizona because our attorneys are only licensed in the state of Arizona. The first thing you're going to want to look at in a criminal speeding case are the basics, like the radar, lidar calibrations. This is all going to depend on how the police officer says he measured your speed. If your speed was measured by radar, you're going to want to look at those records. This is going to vary depending on law enforcement agency. They all have slightly different standards. DPS, for example, in Arizona, the Highway Patrol, they're supposed to calibrate their radar devices once a year, annually. So you want to make sure that that's been done. You want to check out the service history of that radar device. The other thing you want to check on is, was the police officer who gave you the ticket certified to operate the radar device? Was he properly trained? It's rare that you're going to find an issue with that, but it has come up, so it's an easy thing to look at. Now, similarly, if your speed was measured by laser or LiDAR, you're going to want to look at the history for that device, and you're going to want to look at the officer's training for that. LiDAR devices often don't have any annual calibration requirements, so it's usually a situation of the law enforcement agency will send them back if they're malfunctioning. Now, if your speed was measured by pace, that gives you some more options of what to look into. So speed by pace, the officer is essentially claiming that he followed behind your vehicle, matching your speed, and that way he was able to look at his speedometer and tell how fast you were going. A couple things you want to look at here. So one, you want to look at the speedometer calibration records for that police officer's vehicle. And the second thing is, you may be able to get GPS data from the police officer's vehicle. Most police vehicles in Arizona record GPS data, motorcycles being the exception. So if a police officer is driving a sedan or an SUV or a Dodge Challenger or whatever, odds are good that there's some GPS data associated with that vehicle. Now, if the police officer is saying he paced you, you would expect GPS data from that vehicle to show the police officer was at the same location that you were on that same time and that he was going the speed that he had alleged. Now, with AVL data, there's a couple possibilities here. One, it's always possible that the prosecution provides you AVL data and it supports what the officer is saying. You were speeding. The second possibility is the AVL data does not support what the officer is saying, or it's ambiguous. Either of those situations, you may be able to use it to argue that you weren't going at the speed that the officer was alleging. A third possible situation is the prosecution, the state, fails to disclose the AVL data for some reason. Either they can't get it from the law enforcement agency or that it got destroyed by the law enforcement agency and it's no longer available. Either way, sometimes you may be able to leverage that non-disclosure to your advantage. Some other basic things that you're going to want to look at. Does the court handling your ticket have jurisdiction to hear your case? This is going to depend on where the ticket was written and does the court's jurisdiction cover that location. Now, like we discussed, most vehicles have GPS data, and so when the police officer is generating the ticket, his computer is telling him where he is and what court that ticket should go to. But from time to time, we do see an error with that. And the case gets sent to the wrong court. If the court doesn't have jurisdiction, you can get your case dismissed. Another thing might be, did the officer lose visual of your vehicle between the time he says he measured the speed and when he pulled you over? Now, if he got your license plate before he lost visual, that doesn't necessarily work. But if he's just went and found the next silver four-door sedan that he thought he measured the speed on and yours happened to match, then that is a problem. Now, finally, another thing you might want to look into is officer availability. So just because the officer gave you the ticket doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be available down the road to testify at a trial, for instance. Usually they are, but every once in a while we come across a situation where between that time when the officer wrote the ticket and the trial, maybe he got deployed, maybe he's Army Reserve or something like that, maybe he retired, he's no longer available. We've even had officers pass away during the pendency of the case, but regardless of why the officer's unavailable, the fact is he's the state's witness. If you can't testify at trial, then they're going to have to dismiss your case. Now, if all the basics check out and the officer's available and you don't have any legal argument to fight your case with, then you kind of move on to some other angles of attack here. One might be asking the judge to let you take defensive driving school to resolve your ticket. This is something that's at the discretion of the court. The court doesn't have to let you take defensive driving school, but if they do, then you take the class and the charge gets dismissed. This is going to vary widely from court to court. Every court's got a different policy on this. Some courts will never allow defensive driving school. Some courts are very generous. Some courts are going to look to the prosecution for their position, even though they don't have to. So that's really something you just got to feel out court by court. Another approach is to try and negotiate an improved outcome with the prosecuting attorney, the attorney for the state. You might be able to negotiate a situation where they amend the charge to say a civil speeding violation. Sometimes you might be able to do a defensive driving diversion type situation with the prosecutor where they agree to amend it or dismiss it if you take a class or do some community service or jump through some other hoops. When you're trying to negotiate that improved outcome, some of the things that can make a big difference are your driving history. Get a copy of your driving history so you can see what's on there. Your kind of character and background. Do you do a lot of community service, or what do you do for work? Are you involved in your church? You volunteer with your kids, or anything like that to really show that you're a good law-abiding person who doesn't normally get criminal traffic charges. That's going to be helpful. One other thing that's available to some folks, if you're a veteran, a lot of courts have a veterans court program. And if you are a veteran, you should definitely take advantage of veterans court, because you can often get a much improved outcome over what you might get in the regular court. If you have questions about your case, you're not sure how to proceed, or you run into a problem when you're trying to get this kind of information, give our office a call and we're happy to talk with you. We offer free consultations.